Hey everyone, you got the Hobby Drifter here. I'm a big fan of Uncle Scrooge, and there's not a lot of Uncle Scrooge stuff available here in Japan. So, what I decided to do a few years ago was I made a promise to myself as kind of a side hobby that if I saw anything with Uncle Scrooge on it, I would buy it in person. Like, doesn't count online stuff because that would just be insane. Because you can get anything you want online. So here's one of the things from my collection. This is a Ducktales Music Box from 1986. I found very little information on this. I don't know if it was only released in Japan. I don't know if it was released outside of Japan and someone brought it here and then sold it to a secondhand store. I have no idea, but it's a Ducktales Music Box from 1986 with beautiful, vibrant art on the cover. And there's the logo. And if you open it up, sometimes it plays the. There we go. Yeah, funny story about this. This was from my favorite secondhand store just outside of Tokyo. It was called 555, and they closed fairly recently. It was a really cool secondhand store that they would just sell basically anything. You could find collectibles or clothing or kitchen supplies, unused stationery, handbags. I mean, just tons and tons of stuff. It wasn't like there was any kind of theme to it. They just, if you wanted to sell some junk, they would take it off your hands for you and then resell it. And this is one of the things that I got there. It's one of the last things I got there. Now, speaking of DuckTales, here's one of my favorite items in the collection. And this is an Uncle Scrooge hand puppet, also from 1986. Still got the original tag on it. So it's from Heart and Heart. Pretty nice shape. The feathers are a little bit ruffled, but it's clearly the DuckTales version of Scrooge. I got this in Fukuoka at a secondhand store. That's the name escapes me. But it was in just a big bin of plushies, and it was 3 for 100 yen. So it was like pick any 3 plushies for 100 yen. And I grabbed this because I couldn't grab this thing fast enough. I also grabbed Spider-Man and a judo type guy for my classes. I use them in lessons, but not this. This just sits on my shelf. Again, this is one of those things where I've looked up information on it, and I've never been able to find any concrete evidence of exactly where it was sold or any like what the MSRP was. But it's Uncle Scrooge, and it's a little hand puppet, and it's mine. And speaking of cute little plushy stuff, this is a more recent one. This is the Carl Barks and Don Rosa version of Uncle Scrooge, released from Takara Tomy Arts. Got this from Bic Camera in Kyushu. You can see here it was 730 yen. I'm told that it's out of print and it sells for a little bit more now. Still got the little hanging thing on there. But it's cute and adorable. And I'm also told that they make these in different sizes. Like there's a huge one that I've never been able to find and probably don't have space for. But it is nice to have a little huggable version of both the Carl Barks Don Rosa version and the DuckTales version. And while we're on the topic of, again, cute little fluffy Scrooges, this is from the Zodiac collection. You can see this is Libra, and it's a cute little baby Scrooge with the scales, because it's the Libra thing's got the scales. This is from the Tokyo Disney store in Shibuya. It's got kind of a hefty price tag of 1,500 yen, which is kind of pricey for what this thing is. But it's the original 1980s Ducktales version. This only came out, I think, last year. I think it was 2019 that this was released. And it's weird. Like, a lot of times you'll see on Japanese figures like this, ages 15 and up. So this is like an adult-oriented collectible. And it's got the little jewel on here and the gold chains. And yeah, I had a brief moment where I was like, oh, I should just buy the whole set. But there's much better uses of that much money, and also I just really care about Scrooge more than any other Disney characters. There's this great interview with Don Rosa, the great modern Uncle Scrooge artist, where he was showing off some of his Scrooge stuff, and he made this interesting distinction. He said, I don't really care about Walt Disney's Uncle Scrooge or Walt Disney's Donald Duck. I only care about Carl Barks's Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck. And I thought that was just an amazing distinction to make between Don Rosa, saying that, oh, Disney's ducks are not Carl Barks's ducks, which is, I don't know, to me that was just like, oh, that's a really cool distinction. It would be like saying that, I don't care about Marvel's Spider-Man. I only care about Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man. Interesting thought. And more cute Japanese stuff. This is a little Kewpie type character. Yeah, the Kewpie mascot in a Donald Duck costume. Again, it's the Carl Barks, Don Rosa colored, along with this weird black and gray thing that I don't really see very often. This is kind of a cheat. I didn't buy this in person. This was a gift from my wife that she found. Yeah, it's just from Disney. Roseo, Neil Kewpie, and much like a lot of other Japanese stuff, there's not really an easily identifiable date on there, which is something we'll get into in just a bit. So yeah, I've got stuff here from Ducktales. I've got some Japanese stuff from like the Carl Barks, Don Rosa thing, which leaves this. This is the Japanese version of the Mickey's Christmas Carol. You can read it here, Mickey no Christmas Carol. And again, it's got Uncle Scrooge here. Before he was Uncle, it's Ebenezer Scrooge. It's Uncle Scrooge playing Ebenezer Scrooge, and it's really just it's a board book, so like each of these pages is heavy cardboard. And it's shots from the classic cartoon. I bought this quite a while ago. I've used it to practice my Japanese. It's like it was 200 yen at book off, which means that I probably got it maybe 7-8 years ago, before the tax hike. The very first Uncle Scrooge item that I picked up in Japan was this. It was part of the Disney Choco Party. And this series had multiple incarnations, and it focused on popular characters and characters that weren't necessarily so popular. You can see there's like the whale from Pinocchio's in there, and then like the there's a bunch of characters in here that aren't necessarily the most well represented, and one of them was Uncle Scrooge, this perfect DuckTales representation of him. He's got it's very nicely painted. He's got the coins dripping out of his bag. He's got the cane. Everything is very nice. This was the very first Scrooge item that I picked up when I came here. It's 100 yen at a secondhand store, and I own, I think, 4 of these that I stick on my work desks and things like that. Just a little bit of kitsch. Very, very cute. Less cute was a recent one from a couple of years ago. There was the Fruita chocolate eggs, and this Uncle Scrooge was one of the figures that was released in there, and there was something like 15 or 20 different little figures that you could get in these eggs, all the Disney Duck characters. So I mean, there was Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and then Donald, and then Ludwig van Drake, and all Daisy and them. And I bought, I want to say, close to 50 of these eggs at $1 or $2 each, until I finally got one Uncle Scrooge. I mean, I got probably 4 or 5 Donalds. I only made one set of nephews, but I had I think 3 or 4 Deweys, and then like maybe 4 Louies, but then like only one Huey, and then only one Scrooge. So I mean, this is probably per capita the most expensive Scrooge figure that I've bought, because I must have paid $50 to $100 USD to get this one figure, and it's not very good. It's not very well painted. It's not very well detailed, but it was a decent opportunity for me to get like the whole Duck family. Interesting side note, well, it's called Ducktales now in Japan. The original Japanese title for the Ducktales game and Ducktales cartoon was Wanpaku Duck Yume Boken, which is like mischievous duck dream adventure, or naughty duck dream adventure. Wanpaku is, there's some argument as to how to translate it. I like it as mischievous, but I think technically it is naughty. So yeah, Wanpaku Duck Yume Boken, subtitle DuckTales, with Uncle Scrooge's face on there. Classic game. It's almost identical to the NES version. So of course this is the Family Computer Famicom version. Cool name, Cap UK. But after the series had run its course, they did release the sequel, and I couldn't find a copy for a very long time. I was looking everywhere for a copy of Wanpaku Duck Yume Boken 2, and couldn't find one. I couldn't find one online. I couldn't find one in stores, until finally I went to this place in not Shibuya. It was Shinjo, where there was this cute little secondhand store, toy store, video game, stuff like that. And the guy who ran it was huge geek. Loved hanging out there, talking to him. I bought stuff from him just out of principle, because I wanted to support his store. He's retired now. He's moved back to Fukuoka to be with his family. But I was like, yeah, I've been looking for this, Wanpaku Duck Yume Boken 2 for years, and I can't find one. And he goes, oh, well, man, that's because you're looking in the wrong place. There is no Wanpaku Duck Yume Boken 2. I'm like, no, I'm sure there is. I've seen pictures of the cart. He goes, well then, how would you not know that the title isn't Wanpaku Duck Yume Boken 2? It's DuckTales 2. Yeah, they released the sequel under the U.S. name, and also with the U.S. The Western box art. But yeah, here's the sequel, which is not as good as the original, but it is very, very nice. It does kind of drive my OCD a little bit crazy that I've got the boxed version of 2, but I've never been able to score a boxed version of 1. I mean, this is the harder one to get, so I mean, I shouldn't be complaining too much. I found someone slipping online with this, so yeah, I was just kind of like, oh, well, it's cheaper to get one with the box than it is a lot of loose cards. So, yoink. I was kind of surprised when it showed up. So when I said that I buy anything that I see in Japan that has Uncle Scrooge on it, I meant it. Which even includes when Scrooge is just a tiny part of something. This is the Mickey and Friends chess game, which I got from the same secondhand store as the music box. This might be one of the most expensive things I've ever seen at that store at 2,000 yen. But as you can see, Uncle Scrooge is the knight. Well, the knights. I mean, there's two of them. Yeah, here's the other one. And this is, again, not exclusive to Japan, but it is the Japanese version. There was a multi-language instruction booklet that was included, but also this one is only in Japanese. This set is kind of infuriating to me because I would love to know when it came out, where it was originally sold, like what the original MSRP is, but I cannot find that information anywhere. People say, oh, they'll list it on eBay as vintage or classic or whatever, but I cannot get a date for it. I don't know like what the deal is at all, but it had Scrooge in it, and I do like to play chess, so I mean I had to grab that. The figures are all kind of like whatever. They're cheap little plastic and rubber. This set's in fairly nice shape, but I mean, yeah, they're not. These figures aren't anything too special, but they're nice to have. Here's, yeah, I mean, he's cute and everything, but it's it is what it is. It was Scrooge thing, functional Scrooge thing, so had to have it. Had to add that to my collection. What I probably didn't need to add to my collection, though, was this. It's The Music of Disney, A Legacy and Song. And as you can see, this copy is beaten all to hell. But this is a 3 CD set of Disney music. It was released in 1992. So, I mean, it's basically, it's mostly like the big Disney tracks released, between the beginning of Disney in 1992. But while I was looking at this at a secondhand store, I noticed that it includes the Ducktales theme. Ooh, Ducktales theme. Which, no DuckTales without Uncle Scrooge, so that counts. And it includes this really nice booklet that just goes through all of the music of Disney up through 92. And that includes, of course, DuckTales. This is the only Scrooge-related thing in the entire set, so I had to have it. And it also includes a Japanese translation of the text. Again, I think it would have been cool if this was the entire book translated into Japanese instead of just like a supplementary thing. But it was kind of nice to have the English version too, so I can't complain too much. And while we're on the topic of stuff that only barely features Uncle Scrooge, how about this? This is the Disney poster book. This was not a Japanese exclusive release, but I did find it in Akihabara. And as you might suspect, there's only one little bit of Scrooge in here, and that is the Ducktales, the movie, The Treasure of the Lost Lamp. I don't think that there's even like the... I was kind of hoping when I picked this up that there would be something like Scrooge McDuck and Money, but no. But yeah, this I grabbed in Akihabara just on my way home from the office one day. I was like, oh, Disney poster book. I wonder if... Oh, yep, there's Treasure of the Lost Lamp, and this was probably 500 yen or so. So had to throw it in the collection. And the reason that I had to point that out was I do have this one, the DuckTales, the movie, Treasure of the Lost Lamp. This is the rental copy. So every now and then in strip malls or shopping arcades, you'll find places that are just selling used rental copies of movies. And I don't know what the deal is. I'm suspecting it's like when a rental store goes out of business, these guys buy up all the stock and sell it, for whatever. And yeah, usually I think everyone I've ever been to everything is 500 yen, which means I got this for 500 yen. Some of these older rental copies are harder to find, kind of expensive. This sucks. I mean, this is released, in the I think late 80s. The DVD itself is from 2004. The picture quality is awful. The sound quality is bad. It's not in any way like a good way to watch this movie. There are English and Japanese voices on here, as well as English and Japanese subtitles. I'm glad to have this in my collection because it's small, doesn't take up too much space. It's the only Japanese DuckTales media that I own, but it's not great. I was happy to find this because I never really find anything good. Whenever I go to these or whenever I spot these little kiosks or little temporary stores selling these things, I always go in because I'm keeping an eye out for the Transformers movie, the 1986 Transformers movie, because the Japanese version is incredibly hard to find, rare, and expensive. And I've been told that the Japanese version has a bunch of really interesting dialogue choices that I would really enjoy checking out. So yeah, I've never found that, but I have been able to grab this. So yeah, that's my look at my Japanese Uncle Scrooge collection. I have significantly more Japanese stuff than I do English stuff. The only English DuckTales stuff that I have in my collection, except for that one book, was 3 items. So I got the little golden book, DuckTales, The Secret Sea Under the City, which is really a fun little golden book. Then there's a big little golden book with DuckTales, The Road to Riches, and this one I'm really into because the characters are just slightly off model, which I don't see in Disney stuff very often, where the characters are, they're obviously recognizable, but they're just a tiny bit off model, which is fun to see. And the DuckTales, his Funko Uncle Scrooge, all 3 of these were sent to me by my friend Dustin from the US, who has come to Japan a couple of times to enjoy the wonders of Tokyo. And there's only one other DuckTales item, not DuckTales, one other Uncle Scrooge item in my collection, and it is this. Now this is Walt Disney's Donald Duck, number 178. It's from Dell. And this was the very first appearance anywhere of Uncle Scrooge. Uncle Scrooge McDuck. As you can see, this copy is very well worn, and I bought this maybe 4 years ago. I had just left the worst job I've ever had in my life. It was the job just like beat me to hell, like mentally and physically. I was a complete wreck at the end of working this job, and I wanted to buy something that would just kind of cheer me up a little bit. Not something that was like easy to get. I mean, of course, me, I do the retail therapy thing fairly regularly with Transformers and stuff like that. But I wanted to just buy something that was just like would make me feel good. So for the first time ever, I bought a comic book off of eBay, and I decided to go with the very first Uncle Scrooge story from the 1950s. And it's a really good story. It's Carl Barks, of course. This was the pre-happy Uncle Scrooge, which Don Rosa and even now the new Ducktales cartoon have done a lot with. I was going back and forth between getting that one and the first Scrooge cover one. Decided to go with that one just because, just to have it like at the very beginning. But it was very very sentimental to me to be able to own finally, even in this really rough shape, the origin, like the very fierce story with Scrooge in it. And yeah, that meant a lot to me. So yeah, that's my look at mostly Japanese Scrooge stuff. Thanks for spending some time with me. It's been great talking at you. Do you have any interesting Scrooge stuff or Scrooge stories or anything like that that you want to share? If so, hit me up in the comments. Always love to hear stories from other fans and collectors. Until then, take care and happy hobbying.